Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Spent a lifetime waiting, but waiting for what is not clear. Nothing has changed. Every month, dozens of people gather together in a meeting pretending to be relatives of a passenger on flight MH370. In the closed room, some people silently shed tears. Some people hold their hands. Some people shout loudly. We need them back. Some people cling to it like a vague belief. It's okay. The plane wasn't in the ocean. People are still alive. Just like the roar of a plane flying through the clouds. The cries and screams of those left behind sounded like the wind whistling in their ears. After so many years, there were still no answers. The fate of 239 lives. The truth about the ill-fated flight MH370. The brutality, loss, and unsolvable mystery of MH370 make it one of the most baffling disappearances in aviation history. At 00:04 a.m. on March 8, 2014, Boeing 777-200 flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur as scheduled. There were 239 people on board, including 154 Chinese. Everything was going smoothly. However, when it was time to land at Beijing Airport, there was still no sign of the plane. The information board at Beijing International Airport currently announced that the flight was delayed. If it was just a delay, it would have been fine, just a little longer at the airport. But everything went quiet when Malaysia Airlines later announced that the plane had gone missing. The airline said the plane lost contact with air traffic control an hour after leaving the Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur. At this time, the radar signal showed that the plane was near the Ho Chi Minh City Flight Information Center. Immediately, many search teams from many countries tried to find where the plane had broken up. Initially, the rescue team focused on searching in the East Sea and the Strait of Malacca. On March 15, 2014, Malaysia received IMSA's intelligence indicating a flight path over the South Indian Ocean. Australia assumed responsibility for search and rescue in the South Indian Ocean, but the search has yet to yield results. Malaysia announced a shift from a search and rescue operation to a search and recovery operation. In May, a trilateral meeting of ministers from Malaysia, China, and Australia made bold decisions. They would expand the underwater search. The search was led by Australia with support from Malaysia and China. A joint coordination center was also set up in Australia earlier. The biggest haul in more than a year was the first piece of debris found on the island of Reunion, east of Madagascar. Several pieces of MH370 debris were later found along the east coast of Africa. In 2018, Malaysia announced the end of the search. The final report of the investigation team in July 2018 was that the research team was unable to determine the main cause of MH370's mysterious disappearance. While hundreds of relatives of the victims are still waiting for a satisfactory explanation of how the Malaysia Airlines flight disappeared, whether it was due to negligence or other factors. Up to now, this is the missing plane case with the largest number of people, the longest search time, the fewest clues, the most complicated passenger nationalities, and the highest search costs. About 26 countries have participated in the search effort over an area of more than 120,000 square meters, costing $200 million. Yet the result is that 33 pieces of debris have been found that are either confirmed or likely to be from MH370. 18 pieces are statistically related according to David Griffin's drift model. These pieces are confirmed to have a common origin at coordinates near the 7th arcade. In 2018, National Geographic, using the MH370 clues, reconstructed a video of the final minutes of the Malaysia Airlines plane. According to the video reconstruction of the final minutes of MH370, the plane continued to exchange signals with the Inmarsat satellite before disappearing from the radar screen. Further analysis of the Inmarsat satellite data shows that MH370 fell very quickly. It is possible that the plane carrying 239 people ran out of fuel and then crashed into the sea in a spiral pattern. The documentary makers believe that the right engine of the plane would be the first to burn, followed by the autopilot system, which helps the plane stabilize, and the left turn. With no power left, the autopilot system would be disconnected, causing MH370 to spiral downward. Of course, this is still just a guess. This National Geographic video gives us a glimpse of what could have happened to MH370 before it disappeared. Just like the desperate search efforts in the southern Indian Ocean, the lives of the families of MH370 passengers are also falling into a giant whirlpool, as the plane and its fate are forever immersed in an unsolved mystery. In her book, The Disappearing Art, Le Monde investigative journalist Florence de Traghi reveals some remarkable clues. When the first piece of debris confirmed to be from MH370 was a piece of a wing, it washed up on a beach in San Andres, Reunion, an island in the western Indian Ocean. Reunion is about 3,500 kilometers from the Seventh Circle, the area where the plane is believed to have crashed. The debris had to have drifted more than 7 kilometers a day in a straight line. It is amazing how long the debris could float after the crash. That could give a good idea of the final moments of the flight, the final impact on the plane, whether it landed in a kiss, a crash landing, or an explosion. Because if the plane dived, its appendages could have been dislodged as they left the plane and hit the water with much less force than if they had been still attached to the fuselage at the time of entry. Investigators believe the plane veered off course, flying thousands of miles off course before crashing into the Indian Ocean. The latest analysis puts the likely crash site at about 1,200 miles from Cape Dlywine, Western Australia. This area has been searched before, but the complex terrain, the seabed is 5,000 m deep. There are high mountains, deep canyons, and many volcanoes, which may be the reason why the search team abandoned the new camera. Currently, the world has quite a lot of data from satellites. There is oceanographic analysis, drift analysis, data from Beijing, and now this new technology. All four match a specific point in the Indian Ocean. That is the announcement and the latest discovery from Richard Godfrey, a famous British aerospace engineer. With new technology, it is possible to determine the location of MH370. Mr. Godfrey combined the new method with data from MH370 satellite communication system to track the last flight of this plane. Mr. Godfrey affirmed that he is very confident in the accuracy of the current location of MH370. At the same time, Godfrey said that it is very likely that MH370 entered air hold mode for about 22 minutes when it was about 277 kilometers off the coast of Sumatra, Malaysia. This also means that it has completely lost contact since it disappeared without a trace. From this new discovery, public opinion began to focus on Captain Jahar Shah, the captain of MH370. Why do we put the plane in hold mode? He was a 53-year-old man, one of the most experienced pilots of Malaysia Airlines, with 18,365 hours of flying experience. From there, the parties reviewed the case and once suspected that AMISA wanted to commit mass suicide and intentionally cause the MH370 accident. Was this a hijacking and an act of terrorism by Jahar Shah? In 2014, Malaysian authorities determined that the plane had been hijacked and diverted from its intended course by an aviation professional. He turned off the in-flight communications equipment and diverted the plane west of Malaysia instead of heading east to Beijing. One of the most striking new pieces of information released by Malaysian authorities is that the plane's tracking system and transponder were turned off before the pilot made his final radio contact with air traffic controllers. In this final communication, a male voice says although the plane's two most important communication systems were turned off, to do this on the world's most modern aircraft requires very deep expertise, and only a pilot or a passenger on board who has been thoroughly trained in aviation can do it. Every detail of the captain's life has been dug up and become the target of investigators. Based on the last images of the two pilots before boarding MH370, both the captain and co-pilot went through a metal detector and were searched by a security officer just hours before they disappeared on flight MH370. In the video, Captain Zahari turns on the metal detector first. After being patted down by a security officer to check, he quickly takes his luggage on a conveyor belt and enters the departure area inside. Pilot Vu Ferrick stepped up next, and the same scene was repeated. Both pilots appeared calm. Investigators also noted Zahari's political connections. It was speculated that Zahari was a political activist and that he had attended the trial of opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim just 7 hours before MH370 took off. Malaysian authorities have questioned the possibility of a political plot behind the flight. Opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim's imprisonment just a day before MH370 took off may have prompted pilot Zahari to act. The 22-minute circling period may have been Zahari's attempt to negotiate Ibrahim's release, but it appears that negotiations were cut short and Zahari eventually took the plane to the furthest reaches of southern India. it seems that if this is the case, Captain Zahari is believed to have plotted MH370's flight path on a flight simulator found at his home. Could this be another political disaster like this? MH17 happened on July 17, 2014. A Boeing plane of Malaysia Airlines with flight number MH17 exploded in the sky of Ukraine, killing all 298 passengers and crew. U.S. President Barack Obama at that time affirmed that MH17 was hit by a missile fired from a separatist-controlled area. President Petro Poroshenko condemned it as an act of terrorism. It would be terrible if MH370 was a premeditated accident. The lives of 239 people were extremely fragile. While the truth was still thick, rumors ran around the world. Since then, there have been many hypotheses about the mysterious disappearance of MH370. However, none of the hypotheses have been proven to be true. 8 years after the fateful day of March 8, 2014, the world still does not know where MH370 is. In the end, only time will answer this question. Or maybe never.